Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome to HeCsUsAll YouTube channel. Today, I have a little bit of an interesting video for you guys. I don't know how well it will be received. My husband shared it on Facebook, and he got his account restricted like immediately. Wasn't even a video yet; it was just a thumbnail. So that's how things go over here at the HeCsUsAll channel. But I put together, I picked out a video we could watch together like usual. I sped it up a little bit. I have to speed it up and put filters over it and pause and talk and all that for copyright reasons. If you'd like to watch the video in its original format, I'll link it below after this is done uploading. I do that every time. So this video talks about Nikola Tesla and how he found the Black Knight satellite. He thought he was communicating with Mars or possibly Venus, but it was the Black Knight satellite that he was communicating with. And there's some articles that I want to show you guys, and also some claims that NASA made. When I was talking to my mom about this video, she said that back at one point, NASA was claiming it was a piece of a rocket or whatever, just space debris. I have an article I'm going to show you guys where they claim it's a thermal blanket. Why a thermal blanket would be floating around in space, I don't really know. Like, did an astronaut go out on a spacewalk holding a blanket around himself? Who knows really. But so we'll play this video, and then I've got some thoughts I want to share with you guys on the subject. I don't think the satellite's alien in origin. I don't think it was from another planet. I don't think it's aliens that are observing us. I think we put it there, just not this time around. But we'll get into that. So let me share this screen real quick here. So like I said, the video sped up a little bit. And I just have some photos for when we talk. But oh, I don't know why this keeps happening. All right, hold on a second. I apologize. This happened last time. There's always got to be an issue. Always. It never fails. Okay, so this is what we want. I apologize, guys. I don't know why, but every time I go to play the actual video I put together for you guys, because I was trying to like get it ready beforehand and I run little tests and stuff, it keeps playing one of the videos next to it instead. It's like this video all around they just don't want me to make it. That seems to keep happening to me. All right, let's try this again. So here we go. Let's do this. Fix that.
Nikola Tesla was a scientific genius,
You
and
guys got volume, right?
he was a man of science and invention. He was a man who was years ahead of his generation, and his accomplishments and scientific inventions completely transformed the world we live in. Although mysteriously, Nikola Tesla is missing from school textbooks and curriculum. He should receive credit for some of the greatest inventions science is utilizing today, and for some of the things we are using in our daily lives. Many of our modern technology stems directly or indirectly from Tesla's mind. He was perhaps right when he said, "Let the future tell the truth and evaluate each one according to his work and accomplishments. The present is theirs. The future, for which I have really worked, is mine."
See, it's sad because this man invented so many things, and he was another one of like Stanley Mayer, for instance. He was one of those like free energy guys. He was going to build a form of energy that could be received through the air. That's why they put Tesla away in a box, just like they did with Stanley Meyer. They didn't take Tesla out, but he didn't die a very rich man. His inventions weren't put to use. When he did die, that his apartment was raided and the government took all of his files and everything that he had. So, you know, these statements that he made at one point in life, he had like a great outlook on things. And if you read through a lot of Tesla's statements, like the further along in life, the more they seem to change. You know what I'm saying? Like they go from being like positive outlook to, you know, I think it was in the beginning how it's just sad that they don't have their own idea, that they stole his.
Nikola Tesla electrified the world by inventing the alternating current electricity supply system, which is now used everywhere on the planet. His legacy also includes groundbreaking work on electric railroads, fluorescent and neon lights, wireless radio communications, X-ray, remote control, turbine engines, speedometers, helicopters, and even torpedoes. He was so ahead of his time that he even made some incredible predictions for the development of our future technologies. For example, here's a quote from Tesla, in which he is describing the modern cell phone way back in 1926. He said, "When wireless is perfectly applied, the whole Earth will be converted into a huge brain," which in fact it is, all things being particles of a real and rhythmic whole. We shall be able to communicate with one another instantly, irrespective of distance. Not only this, but through television and telephony, we shall see and hear one another as perfectly as though we were face to face, despite intervening distances of thousands of miles. And the instruments through which we shall be able to do this will fit in our vest pockets.
Now, interesting fact. They tell us all the time that like the technology they show us is 30 years behind what they really have. So, when Tesla was talking about these things and he envisioned them and he knew that they could exist, they probably did exist. But I'm going to get into O parts after this video. O parts, if you don't know, are out of place artifacts. Now, this is when scientists come along things that are in like embedded in million-year-old rock or like 4 million, 40 million, 100 million, like very, very old rocks. And there will be things like screws and spark plugs and hammers and just like modern day things inside rocks. And when scientists come across these things, because it doesn't fit in with their story of how things started and how we came to be, they just throw it to the side and it's an out of place artifact. They just like pretend it doesn't exist. You know, they can't change history that they've already written. Although, you know, they are changing history when they don't tell us what the thing, you know, what history really is. And that's the thing of this. I think that when Tesla found the Black Knight satellite, what he found was a satellite from when we were advanced before. Think about if something terrible were to happen to today, right? Something so bad that it causes mass extinctions and there's like very few people left. um Regular people can't build phones and TVs and even houses, for instance, right? So it would basically set you back to the Stone Age. Now if it took hundreds of thousands of years to become advanced again, everything we have, like houses and even steel, everything, it would just rot away. It wouldn't be anymore. The only difference between this time around of being advanced and times previous is now we have plastic. So they may find that in the future. But I think when in the past they built these massive structures out of stone, it was because they knew it was going to be the only thing left. They knew something big, something bad was coming that we can't stop. We're too small. We're, you know, it's something that is completely out of our control and it happens over and over again. Uh, I think the elite know this. That's why they have those tunnels. That's why they're stocking those tunnels and they think those tunnels are going to keep them safe. Um, I believe it's coming soon, but it's just amazing how history is absolutely not what we're told at all, not even in the slightest.
By the time of Nikola Tesla's death, he held nearly 700 worldwide patents. But despite all of the incredible technologies he's credited for, it is believed that Tesla even invented a technology for utilizing free, unlimited energy, harnessed from the Earth's grid. Technology which could transform the world we live in.
That's it right there. Now, I believe that the pyramids, all of the pyramids, they're set on ley lines, and the way they are set across the world is as if they were power stations. Inside one of the great pyramids in Egypt, it looks like it was some kind of machine, right? Like it was a power station. They were probably set up to do exactly what that just showed. And it passed energy through the air that people were able to pick up and receive on. Now, these things are carved in stone. And again, scientists just look away because it doesn't fit in with their theory of how things came to be.
And advance our civilization to unimaginable heights. Technology, which, like many others, was suppressed by our governments and corporations, only for the sake of profit and control.
Just like
We
Stanley
can say
Meyer.
without a doubt that Tesla is one of the most innovative and mysterious men who ever lived. Our history fails to see that some of the greatest minds, people like Leonardo da Vinci, Galileo Galilei, Isaac Newton, and many more, were also in parts mystics. Tesla was indeed a mystic, and it's a known fact that he was even studying ancient scriptures, dating thousands of years, because he believed that they may hold some hidden knowledge or technology. The ancient
I think he believed that we were advanced in the past. I think he could see the writing on the wall. Like he could see what many people could see, and that the pyramids were built for those reasons and that we could do it again. But the only problem is this time around, there was too much greed with the powerful, and they wanted to make sure that any energy that was to be passed out would be measured and charged. Everything has a price. Nothing is free in the world that we live in, and nothing ever will be.
Vedic philosophy, for example, played a prominent role in his idea of a free energy device. Such was the appreciation of Tesla's mysticism that if he were to be working in the world of science today, he would have been referred to as a pseudo-scientist rather than a real scientist. Tesla's thoughts and ideas even transcended the wireless communication and energy, which in the early 19th century were considered absolutely crazy. It can be said that Tesla's ideas even exceeded the world we live in. He always believed that we are not the only occupants in the known universe, and that there are extraterrestrial beings out there just like ourselves. Even if mainstream science still decides to be oblivious to the fact, they can't deny the array of evidence which
Now, I've mentioned in other videos, I personally think that the Greys are demons. I don't think they're from another planet. I think they're from here. Just we can't see them because they're in another dimension. They could even be right here and moving so fast that we can't see them. Uh, but I don't think they're alien in nature. Do I believe that other species could exist in other areas? Absolutely. God could create many forms of life. He could create many forms of life in his image. When God says he makes us in our image or makes us in his image, it's not that we look like him. It's that we could decipher right from wrong. We can have free will and choice, and we choose whether we want to walk down the path of righteousness or the path of sin, right? He could have made many different creatures in his image in different places. So I don't think if there were extraterrestrials that disproves God. Every time they come up with these theories saying, oh, this or that disproves God, absolutely not. It just proves God all the more. But me personally, I don't think Greys are aliens. I think they are demonic in nature, and they are not here to help us at all. I believe I've talked about that in other videos.
supports that we are not alone in the universe. This echoes the words of Tesla in a rare interview he gave to the Times magazine at the age of 75. This is what he said. I think that nothing can be more important than interplanetary communication. It will certainly come someday, and the certitude that there are other human beings in the universe, working, suffering, struggling, like ourselves, will produce a magic effect on humanity, and will form the foundation of a universal brotherhood that will last as long as humanity itself. Judging by his words, Tesla believed there are many other human-like civilizations out there. This led Tesla to turn his attention towards the skies. Not so many people are aware of the fact that Tesla came to an interesting find in 1899, which can put things into perspective and pave the idea that we are not alone after all. While working in 1899 at his Colorado Springs laboratory, Tesla announced that he had received extraterrestrial radio signals from space, And as it was typical of the science community,
At this time, satellites didn't exist. They weren't a thought. I don't even think they were a theory yet. Okay. So he built something that could receive signals. He picked up a signal. His first thought was that it had to be coming from another planet because satellites weren't a thing, right? Um, so that's what he thought he was picking up, but it was found out like later in the 50s that there was something up there in a near polar orbit orbiting backwards from the way we make things orbit, right? And they weren't really sure what it was. And that's what Tesla was picking up on. So he thought it was Mars, but it wasn't, and it was a repeating signal that he was getting. So it was transmitting something back to Earth, which again tells me that no, it wasn't extraterrestrial. It was something that we built when we were advanced before, because why would it be transmitting back to Earth? It would be transmitting somewhere else. This video says that some guy deciphered it and it says it's from some planetary system, blah, blah, blah. I think the guy's probably a nut. Because if it was some kind of alien language, tell me how he had any key to decipher it in any way. Like, what was he using to transform in English or any language that he was speaking? I think it was English, but into an completely alien language. Like, it's not possible. So the transmission was being sent back to Earth. We must have built it.
they laughed off his claims and immediately used this to discredit him and call him crazy. The existence of cosmic radio signals was unknown at that time, so this was expected as Tesla was light years ahead of the scientific community, and usually, his findings were always ridiculed or laughed off. It would not be out of place to say that Tesla felt alone and misunderstood by the scientific community that should have been more receptive of him and his ideas. It was while he was in Colorado Springs, observing stationary waves, that Tesla discovered strange radio signals from his receiver. After careful and thorough observations, Tesla came into a conclusion that these signals were not from Earth, and they're not natural, but instead, they must have had intelligent origin from somewhere or someone in space. Tesla reported this otherworldly communication and proclaimed his belief in extraterrestrials in February 1901 in the Collier's Weekly magazine, in an article titled Talking with the Planets. This is what Tesla wrote. I can never forget the first sensations I experienced when it dawned upon me that I had observed something possibly of incalculable consequences to humanity. I felt as though I were present at the birth of a new knowledge, or the revelation of a great truth. Even now at times I can vividly recall the incident and see my apparatus as though it were actually before me. My first observations positively terrified me, as there was present in them something mysterious, not to say supernatural, and I was alone in my laboratory at night. But at that time, the idea of these disturbances being intelligently controlled signals did not yet present itself to me. As curious,
Can you imagine though? Like, you build this thing, right, that can receive signals and you pick one up. But again, the signal was being sent to Earth. So that should have immediately risen red flags like, we built this, but when? Now, maybe that should have made them open their eyes to all these O parts that they've just been brushing to the side every time they find them. And let's be honest, like, we've been here, we've done this before. I think it's been more than once. I think this has happened time and time again. It's like there's a reset that happens, and maybe it's going to keep happening until we finally get it right. And that leads me back to what I've talked about before, like with simulation, which again doesn't disprove God, because God built the simulation and we're here for a reason. But maybe it's something that's running over and over and over and over again, could be causing the Mandela effect because we're having memories of a past run, right? Um, and it's just going to keep happening until we finally get it right. God is trying, God, we're God's children. He loves us. He's trying to perfect us, right? Um, but we put this thing up there. And I think there's plenty of proof that we've been very advanced in the past.
as he ever was, Tesla moved to Colorado Springs so he could investigate atmospheric electricity and use his signals to observe lighting signals. It was during this time that Tesla stated that he found stationary waves. He continued, the changes I noted were taking place periodically, and with such a clear suggestion of number and order, that they were not traceable to any cause then known to me. I was familiar, of course, with such electrical disturbances as are produced by the sun, aurora borealis, and earth currents, and I was as sure as I could be of any fact that these variations were due to none of these causes. The nature of my experiments precluded the possibility of the changes being produced by atmospheric disturbances, as has been rashly asserted by some. It was some time afterward, when the thought flashed upon my mind that the disturbances I had observed might be due to an intelligent control. Although I could not decipher their meaning, it was impossible for me to think of them as having been entirely accidental. The feeling is constantly growing on me that I had been the first to hear the greeting of one planet to another. I was not merely beholding a vision, but had caught sight of a great and profound truth. Others may scoff at this suggestion of communicating with one of our heavenly neighbors as Mars, or treat it as a practical joke, but I have been in deep earnest about it ever since I made my first observations in Colorado Springs. At the time, there existed no wireless plant other than mine that could produce a disturbance perceptible in a radius of more than a few miles. Furthermore, the conditions under which I operated were ideal, and I was well trained for the work. The character of the disturbances recorded precluded the possibility of their being of terrestrial origin, and I also eliminated the influence of the sun, moon, and Venus. As I then announced, the signals consisted in a regular repetition of numbers, and subsequent study convinced me that they must have emanated from Mars.
A regular repetition of numbers that was being transmitted back to Earth. It's something that mankind of some sort, maybe even the giants that we hide, um, built and put up there. And maybe it was some kind of mapping satellite because of the way it's in polar orbit. That's what they think it would be because that's what we do with near polar orbit satellites, right? But it was much better than anything we could have ever built because it's still up there and it's still orbiting. Ours come down after a while. We were much more advanced in the past than we are now, by far, like by far. And I think we're more destructive. And this time around, I think we were probably better in the past. And this time we really screwed things up because we hide things like the inventions of Nikola Tesla, the inventions of Stanley Mayer, so many things that just get hidden, and then we get taxed for, greenhouse gas prices and all these other things when these things could be solved so simply with water cars and free energy. And if we weren't using all of the earth's resources, we wouldn't be where we are. And there are ways to have energy and to everybody just would be have free energy, cars running on water, making hydrogen, water vapor is the exhaust, like it fixes everything. But what are we doing? We're collecting money. Well, we're not collecting money. They're collecting money.
The planet having just then been close to the Earth. Tesla strongly believed that these signals were from an extraterrestrial source of some kind, and in a way, it was acting as a communication medium between Earth and some unknown extraterrestrial source. In Tesla's words, any form of communication can exist between extraterrestrials and humans, even if it was communication involving just numbers. 69 years after Tesla's discovery, in 1968, the American Physical Society confirmed that these signals, or this strange unnatural object they originate from, was indeed coming from some extraterrestrial source, or it may even be an effort to communicate with Earth by alien beings. Tesla never claimed he heard signals coming from a satellite orbiting the Earth, but there are those who still believe he was listening to transmissions from an orbiting satellite, one that was none other than the mysterious and enigmatic Black Knight satellite. The Black Knight satellite is one of those space mysteries that will continue to perplex everyone for decades. Back in the early 1950s, when it was first discovered,
So this is the funny thing. It was discovered, okay? It was discovered in the early 1950s. They found it. And not only did they find that, they said one or two artificial satellites were orbiting the planet that we didn't put there. The Soviets didn't put there. Our our time of people didn't put there, right? Um our time in history, can we say. Uh they found it. They admitted to finding it. They started checking it out. They took some photos of it and stuff. Then they came out at some point and said that it was a piece of space junk. It was a piece of a rocket. That was when they figured out what it was. That was when they figured out that we built it, we put it up there, and oh crap, something really bad happened, right? Now they say it's for like now if you look up what it is, it's a space blanket. I'm going to show you guys that as soon as this is over. This is about to be over soon. So, but a space blanket. Someone, please tell me like a rational way that a space blanket would end up out in space. Like, why was an astronaut out on a spacewalk and decided he was going to lay down on the outside of the space station and just cover up with a blanket? Or well, did one of them, like, I don't know, their bag unzip and it gets sucked out of an air? Like, it doesn't make any sense. How would a space blanket get outside? It just, it, when they give you those kind of explanations, it just boggles my mind. To me, it's like they're testing how stupid the masses are. Like, how much can we make them believe?
The US thought it belonged to the Soviets, and the Soviets thought it belonged to the US. In reality, none of the above had the technology or ability to place satellites in orbit at that time, consequently, leading many to believe it had to be of extraterrestrial origin, placed there to monitor our planet. The U.S. Department of Defense commissioned astronomer Clyde Tombaugh to look for it. Word quickly spread, and a famous article about the Black Knight was published in the St. Louis Dispatch and the San Francisco Examiner on May 14, 1954. The story highlighted an interview with retired Marine.
So that said the San Francisco Examiner, May 14th, 1954. After this, I'm going to read you parts of that just because it proves like they admitted to this thing. And now they say it's a space blanket.
Marine Corps Major Donald E. Keyhole, who stated that Earth was being circled by one or two artificial satellites. He added that government scientists at White Sands, New Mexico, were making every effort to locate and chart these extraterrestrial satellites to determine their origin. This news article was written 3 years before the Soviet Union would launch the Earth's first satellite, Sputnik 1, and the US would follow a few years later with their own. According to monitoring agencies around the world, the Black Knight has been.
So they discovered it, one or two, before any satellites went up, right? And somehow it then became a piece of space junk that later transformed into a space blanket. Okay, I think I got it. Just wanted to make sure.
Been transmitting radio signals for over 50 years now, leading many to believe that what Tesla heard in 1899 was coming from the Black Knight satellite. The USA and Soviet Union have shown particular interest in this unidentified space object. Since its discovery,
They
this
showed
satellite has
interest
interested countries such as Sweden and many
in a space blanket. Space blanket.
enthusiasts worldwide. One of them is a ham radio operator who apparently had decoded a series of signals received from the Black Knight satellite and interpreted it as a star chart centered on the Epsilon Bootes star system, and that the Black Knight originated from this system 13,000 years ago. In 1957, Dr. Luis Corrales of the Communications Ministry in Venezuela photographed it while taking pictures of Sputnik 2 as it passed over Caracas. The strange thing looked nothing like Sputnik 1 and 2, and it didn't even behave like any of our satellites. The Black Knight satellite orbited Earth from east to west. Sputnik 1 and 2 orbited from west to east, using Earth's natural rotation to maintain orbit.
That's one hell of a space blanket.
Interest in the Black Knight was higher each year, when in 1957, an unknown object was seen shadowing the Sputnik 1 spacecraft. According to reports, the unidentified object was in polar orbit. At that time, the United States nor the Russians possessed the technology to maintain a spacecraft in polar orbit. According to our research, the first polar orbiting satellite was launched in 1960. Polar orbits are often used for Earth mapping, Earth observation, capturing the Earth as time passes from one point, and reconnaissance satellites. This would put the Black Knight in the category.
This gets me again to, we put it there last time because we were mapping the Earth, and it probably maps around the Earth as well, because we knew something bad was happening. And back then, though, they probably told everybody and prepared everybody as best they could. Now they're just emptying all the shelves and raising the prices of everything and trying to starve people out, possibly, and much more. But I'm not going to say too much because That's why my channel is where it is right now. But it's going to happen again, and that's why it was up there the first time. That's why they were mapping it. They put it up there in a polar orbit, and it's been orbiting for over 10,000 years at least. We couldn't even figure out polar orbits until 1960. And again, our satellites don't stay up there that long. Eventually, they come down. So we were smarter once in the past.
Category of an observational satellite. The only question here is, who placed the Black Knight in our polar orbit, and who is observing us?
We did.
Astronomers and scientists calculated the object's weight to be over 10 tons, which would be, at the time, the heaviest artificial satellite to orbit our planet. The Black Knight's orbit was unlike any other object orbiting Earth, as it was moving twice as fast when compared to any other man-made spacecraft. There are also several reports that the Grumman Aircraft Corporation gave much importance to this mysterious satellite. On September 3, 1960, 7 months after the satellite was first detected by radar, a tracking camera at Grumman Aircraft Corporation's Long Island factory took a photograph of the Black Knight. At that point, people all over the world started identifying the object in the sky, which could be seen as a red light, moving at higher speed compared to other satellites in an east-to-west orbit. The Grumman Aircraft Corporation formed a committee to study the data received from the observations made. But
okay, again, so they found the thing. They reported they found the thing. We didn't have satellites up there yet. They got so concerned they formed a committee because what the hell is this thing, right? But it's just a space blanket that somehow got up there before we got up there. Makes sense. Again, testing the masses to see how much crap they're willing to eat. How much are you willing to eat?
But nothing was made public. In 1963, Gordon Cooper was launched into space. On his final orbit, he reported seeing a glowing green object in front of his capsule in the distance moving towards his spacecraft. The Mysticism tracking system in Australia, which Cooper reported the object to, picked up this unidentified object on radar, traveling east to west. NBC reported this, but after Cooper had returned to Earth, the reporters were not allowed to ask Cooper about the unidentified object. Of course,
See?
the official explanation given to Cooper's sighting were high levels of carbon dioxide, which caused hallucinations. Despite NASA's attempt to explain what Cooper saw with a more mundane explanation, he continued throughout his life to divulge stories that detailed his experiences with UFOs and other unexplained phenomena. He often spoke of attempted government cover-ups regarding UFOs and unexplained activity. So, it could be probable he saw the Black Knight, realizing its existence was deliberately being withheld from the public. In 1973, a Scottish astronomer and author, Duncan Lunan, wrote that he had identified.
This is the guy. Okay. He's an author too. So all the more that I take this with a grain of salt. I think it's complete BS.
Identified and deciphered a hidden radio message in outer space radio emissions that predate human existence in outer space. Lunan says the deciphered message said, "Start here. Our home is Upsilon Boots, which is a double star. We live on the sixth planet of 7, coming from the sun, which is the larger of the two. Our sixth planet has 1 moon. Our fourth planet has 3. Our first and third planets each have 1. Our probe is in the position of Arcturus." It is suggested that the Black Knight satellite has always roamed the Earth's orbit for thousands of years, unbeknownst to man.
Again, how would he decipher? You got to understand, if something were to be alien, right? That means it's alien, like completely alien. Like we are carbon-based life forms. You know what else is like a base that could very well support life? Silicone. So there very well could be other life forms out there that are entirely different than us. There could be in like DNA that is just not even there, or it could be like triple and quadruple stranded. The their physics might not even work like ours. Okay. So something that's alien would be completely alien. Their language, we would not have any starting point or key to figure out the message. And again, this satellite was transmitting to Earth. It's something we built. And Tesla said it was a repeating string of numbers. Probably longitude and latitude coordinates. Again, a polar satellite for mapping purposes that we used before, because that's what we do now. History does tend to repeat itself, just sometimes it's a little different each time.
No other person knew of its existence until Tesla found it in an unlikely way. The mysterious satellite moves around the Earth's orbit, transmitting radio frequency now and then. As already mentioned, Tesla was years ahead of his time, and this was clearly exhibited in his discovery of the Black Knight satellite phenomenon. Tesla's grand discovery has paved the way for others to know about the existence of the Black Knight satellite. This alien satellite has been a topic of interest all around the world. Until today, most of the information on the mysterious object is kept safe and away from society. Yet no one has answered the questions.
What does that even mean? Is kept safe and away from society? Away from society. Safe. Again, okay.
Who placed that satellite in our polar orbit, and to what purpose? Based on everything we've discovered on the Black Knight satellite, there are two theories. One theory suggests that the Black Knight satellite is of alien origin, and it's placed here to monitor our species. The other theory suggests that the origin of the satellite isn't alien, but actually an ancient human creation.
Bum,
The
bum,
idea here is that
bum.
an ancient race of humans were scientifically advanced and launched.
Now, again, like I said, see how like this is their little image of if we were advanced before. Things made out of steel and wood and all these metals and stuff, metals rust and disintegrate and disappear. Wood rots away. If hundreds of thousands of years were to pass, there would be no man-made objects left. The only thing that is left is the things that they made of stone, and they probably purposely made these things of stone with these carvings in it to warn us of what was going to happen, because it happens over and over again. Maybe they thought that we would be able to prepare a little bit better if we knew ahead of time. But because of the greed of man and the greed of the elite, that they just kept it a big secret, and it's going to be a great big sacrifice when it happens. So,
launched the satellite before becoming extinct. What do you think is the purpose of the Black Knight satellite? And who placed it here?
okay. Oh, hold on. Screwed that up. All right. So, I just want to, this is that article that I mentioned before that they released. Washington, a dark satellite that the Pentagon said may be of Soviet origin, tumbled through space today in an orbit of mystery. Its path over the poles was one that would be desirable for any type of seeing eye space spy, right? We didn't have anything up there yet. Moscow was saying nothing about it. Here's all that's known about the mystery object. According to the Defense Department, it appears to be in a near polar orbit. It is dark, and it is probably less than 19 feet long. It is silent. Lie. It transmits back to Earth. Tesla picked up those transmissions. Um, as far as the US monitors are concerned, but American space scientists have not ruled out the possibility that the satellite could be sending messages if triggered by a remote receiving station in the Soviet Union. However, these scientists have learned from experience that it is difficult to receive signals from a space vehicle tumbling in orbit, as this one appears to be doing. At Jodrell Bank in England, scientists at the British Radio Telescope said that they knew of no satellite sent aloft by the Soviets recently, and that they have no information on any new satellite around the poles. Now, polar orbit was something hard for them to figure out. Like, they did get satellites up there, but not in polar orbit right away. And that's what this thing was doing. Navy tracking stations first spotted the object about 3 weeks ago, but the Defense Department said nothing about it. Of course, they didn't, because they knew exactly what it was. There was no official comment until after word was publicized Wednesday that the Pentagon was buzzing with "what is it" speculation. American scientists quickly estimated the possibility that the space traveler was one of the known American or Soviet satellites which had been launched in a generally east west orbit. They also tended to rule out the possibility that it could be part of a Soviet's Lunik 3 that took picture of the far side of the moon last October. 6 US Discoverer satellites have been fired into polar orbits. The only one of them still circling is Discoverer 8. So they sent up a bunch of them, and it like we didn't that like I said, it was a hard thing for them to do, right? Um Still circling is Discoverer 8, launched last November 20th from Vandenberg Air Force Base, California. Navy trackers who keep a continuous watch on all space objects said they knew the whereabouts of the Discoverer rocket casings and that this object was not one of them. The only indication of the mystery object that continues on, I don't have any more of the article, but so they came out clearly. They came out and admitted that there was a satellite up there in a polar orbit tumbling that they knew nothing about. We know because of Nikola Tesla that this thing was sending signals back to Earth, repeating numbers, as a matter of fact, like coordinates, for instance. Polar satellites are mapping satellites. Numbers being sent makes sense. Now, they did come around eventually and say that the Black Knight satellite was a piece of a rocket. And then they came around and said something different. So, I just got some stuff here. I just want to show you guys, right? Nikola Tesla built these great machines, these grand machines that have given free energy to everybody. And it was never put forward, just like the water car. So this is the article I found recently looking around for Black Knight satellite things, right? And total gaslighting, especially at the end. You're going to love this one because I've never heard of this. And I'd like to know if anybody else has because never seen a video on it, never heard of it. Gaslighting moment. Ancient alien UFO tracked by conspiracy theorists was just a blanket, says NASA. It was just a blanket. Even though they reported it before we put satellites up there, it's just a blanket. I I it really boggles my mind that they do these things. Like it can't be anything other than testing the intelligence of the masses. Like how much crap can we jam down their throat and how much are they willing to take? And they're successful at it because as a whole, we're just taking it. With so many people are like, "Oh, well, I saw it out on the news. It must be true." It's just amazing, really. It's been 65 years this week since humans launched the first satellite into orbit with the USSR Sputnik. While many astronomy fans are celebrating the anniversary of this huge leap for mankind, others aren't convinced. I guess I got two of these. I apologize. Conspiracy theorists have for years claimed that an alien UFO called the Black Knight has orbited the Earth for around 12,000 years, and that NASA is involved in a huge cover up. I I just love the way they word certain things too, like conspiracy theorists and proponents of the wild-eyed. See right there, I lost it too. The wild-eyed. Like, come on, man. Really? The wild-eyed theory? What is that? Proponents of the wild eyed theory even claim to have photographic proof that the satellite exists. But NASA has insisted for years that they are just looking at a picture of space debris in the form of a thermal blanket lost on a previous mission. Space debris in the form of a thermal blanket lost on a previous mission. I, Please elaborate further for me. How did the blanket get out there? I really want to know. That explanation, I feel, is necessary for anybody to believe this. The Black Knight theory claims that an alien satellite orbited Earth for around 12,000 years, observing humanity for millennia before being discovered 120 years ago and covered up. Which, yes, it was, because you're telling us it's a space blanket. A space blanket. The theory dates back to the 1950s at the height of UFO fever. UFO fever. Now, okay, so like satanic panic, we have UFO fever now with conspiracists, not conspiracy theorists, conspiracists claiming that radio signals from the Black Knight had been picked up during experiments by legendary scientist Nikola Tesla. The theory has risen and fallen in popularity over the years. Uh, when seemingly inexplicable events occurred, such as when astronaut Gordon Cooper claimed to see a UFO during the Mercury 9 mission in 1963. However, the Black Knight myth burst into the mainstream again in 1998 when NASA captured an image of a mysterious black mass in orbit of the Earth from the STS 88 mission to the ISS. Now, keep in mind, we had photos of this thing before 1998. Obviously, when we sent things up there, when it was already up there before we sent things up there. When we sent things up there, you know damn well the Soviets and the US were taking photos of this thing, trying to figure out what it was. And when they did, that's when they started telling us it was other things because they can't tell us what it is because that leads to the truth. It's just, it's amazing. While conspiracy theorists claim this was irrefutable evidence that the theory was true, the explanation was a lot more boring. One of the astronauts dropped a thermal blanket that floated off into space. I still don't get it. One of the astronauts dropped a thermal blanket. Why why did he have a thermal blanket outside of the ISS or outside of the rocket leading to the ISS? Did he ride the outside of the rocket out into space with the thermal blanket wrapped around him? Because it's still not making sense to me. I'm sorry, but it's not. It's not making any sense. Like, not even a little bit. It's how did it get out there? It floated off into oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if you heard that hit the mic. It floated off into space. Astronaut Jerry Ross, who was involved in constructing the ISS at the time, rep- so, while he was building the ISS, he brought the blanket. He brought the blanket outside. Uh, J- and Jerry Ross, who was involved in constructing the ISS at the time, reportedly dropped a thermal cover while on a space rock because he had to have his blankie for security purposes. It was given the catalog number 025570 by NASA, floated around for a few days, then burned up in orbit. End of story, basically. So stop asking about it. Despite being comprehensively debunked, the conspiracy refuses to die. In 2017, UFO theorists claimed the Black Knight satellite was shot down by an Illuminati warplane. There's just no convincing some people. That's what I'm talking about right there. So, someone lead me to the video or the article or anywhere that the claim of Illuminati warplane shooting down the Black Knight satellite happened, cuz I've never come across this conspiracy theory myself, and I think it's really interesting that that's put in the article that's explaining that this thing is just a thermal blanket that some guy dropped while he was building the ISS because I guess he was a toddler and needed his little blankie while he went outside to work on the space station. And then some Illuminati warplane came around and just shot down the Black Knight satellite. That's has anybody heard of that? Because that's a new one to me. That's okay. This is the gaslighting that I'm talking about. It's absolute gaslighting. Um, it There's no other word for it but them gaslighting us. To say crazy things like that and then to group everybody together the way that they do is gaslighting. I've never heard of an Illuminati warplane taking out the Black Knight satellite myself, but I'd like to see the video. Nikola Tesla was an intelligent man. He did amazing things. And I think somewhere in him, he knew that we were advanced before. I think he knew that the pyramids were built to do exactly what he wanted to do. He honestly probably could have put them back into production. Really. He he was a man beyond his years. Now, this is what I mean. Now, if we were advanced in the past like we are today, all the steel buildings, all the wood buildings, all the paper we would have, all the recordings and books, it would all be gone. And they knew that was going to happen. So, what did they do? They put recordings in stone. These are things that they consider O parts. They don't fit in with our little telling of history. So, they're out of place artifacts and they just get pushed to the side. We don't talk about them anymore. This is a carving that shows a helicopter and other like a submarine, what looks like airships. Like they were had things that we have now and they were trying to tell us like, listen, something bad is going to happen and you need to prepare yourselves. I think that the elite know this though. Like, this shows that they had electricity, but this electricity probably ran off of the electricity that was being produced by the massive pyramids that were all over the earth. Now, also, giant skeletons, another thing that have been found all over the earth. They're even in mounds all over the place. There are these mounds in China that are said to be burial places for giant skeletons. They were found in North America, they were found in the UK, they were found everywhere. Giants existed. What happened with those skeletons? They were taken by the governments and they were put away. History was rewritten. Why? Because again, it leads to that conclusion that something horrible happened. Man probably existed with the dinosaurs. We probably hunted the dinosaurs. That man was probably just as big back then. The trees were bigger, there was more oxygen, the animals grew bigger, the bugs grew bigger, and the humans were bigger. That's the way I see it. Giant skeletons found. This was a New York Times article published February 11th, 1902. So, again, they admitted to these things at one time, but then they were like, oh crap, no, it didn't happen. So, Los Angeles, California, February 10th. Owing to the discovery of the remains of a race of giants in Guadalupe, New Mexico, I'm guessing, antiquarians and archaeologists are preparing to further uh, an expedition further to explore that region. This determination is based on the excitement that exists among the people of a scope of country near Mesa Rico, about 200 miles southeast of Las Vegas, where an old burial ground has been discovered that has yielded skeletons of enormous size. Luciana Quintana, on whose ranch the ancient burial plot is located, discovered two stones that bore curious inscriptions, and beneath these were found in shallow excavations the bones of a frame that could, the writing's like all mushed together, it's hard to read, of a frame that could not have been less than 12 feet in length, so a 12-foot tall man. The men who opened the grave say the forearm was 4 feet long and that in a well preserved jaw, the lower teeth ranged from the size of a hickory nut to that of the largest walnut in size. The chest of the being is reported as having a circumference of 7 feet. The 7 feet, the chest. Okay. That's taller than most people, was the size of the chest of this thing. So, oh my God, that's just crazy. Quintana, who has uncovered many other burial places, expresses the opinion that perhaps thousands of skeletons of a race of giants long extinct because something terrible happened will be found. This This supposition is based on the traditions handed down from early Spanish invasion that have detailed knowledge of the existence of a race of giants that inhabited the plains of what now is eastern New Mexico. Indian legends and carvings, also in the same section, indicate the existence of such a race. So, giants have been found all over the earth. There were giant people. Now, I want you to think about the pyramids, right? Our telling of how the pyramids were built was that all these little, all these people that were our size. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even have that on for you guys when I was doing that, but I read it to you. So their theory is that people our size went around and built the pyramids, right? And they had like these ropes, and like 100 people would be pulling a block. That's crap. The giants built the pyramids. They were huge. They could very easily, and they had machinery. They were technologically advanced the way we are. That was what I just read to you guys. This was an article from the New York Times, 1902. These things were huge. Giants would have no problem building these giant structures. Pumapunka, for instance, right? Pumapunta. Those H blocks, that looks like it was a place of construction where they built pieces that would go out to wherever where they would build buildings, right? Look at this place. It's massive. We were very technologically advanced in the past, and governments of the world just don't want to talk about it. It's something that is hidden, and it is hidden for the reason that they think it will cause, which it would. I mean, if you tell everybody that something's going to happen, wormwood, for instance, the Bible speaks of wormwood, you tell people that there's an asteroid coming right at Earth, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. It's going to smack us. And here's the date of when it's going to happen. People are going to lose their minds. That's why they're hiding it. I understand it. But, but if from the very beginning, when we figured out, like, oh, okay, something big is coming, and they left us warnings from the past, we, like, how they subliminally place things in our mind now, like how we saw the Twin Towers fall in a bunch of movies before it actually happened. Predictive programming, they could have did that but used it for a positive reason and prepared people for what is actually coming. Instead, they used it for reasons of just controlling the masses and making us their slaves. But these massive structures were built by us, probably giant people that are now extinct because something bad happened, and we built these structures as a warning for this time around. That's a screw that was found in like a 10 million year old rock, right? This is what they call O parts. That's what they labeled it, out of place artifacts. They don't have an explanation for it. Whatever. It didn't happen. Like, they pretend that they didn't see it, basically. And that's the problem with society. And they find these things all the time. Like, I'd like to look more into this myself. Like, I've watched a lot of different things on O parts, and it's absolutely amazing. They found gears, they found modern day spark plugs and stuff, and rocks that are millions and millions of years old. This is a gear. Like, things that shouldn't have existed because they think that cavemen existed at the time of these things. Now, this thing looks like a modern day cell phone, right? And the writing on it, you see that writing on the right? That is Sumerian text. Look at the buttons on the cell phone. Well, what looks like a cell phone. It looks like Sumerian text, right? We were advanced in the past. They left us what they could in stone as a warning. Like, that phone may not be something that was like actually working, right? Like, this might not, I'm sure, probably didn't actually work. But they built it out of stone to show us, once, like, because they knew we'd get here again, right? So they built this thing out of stone to show us, like, look, we were just as good as you. We made it just as far as you. We were just as advanced as you. And look, you had to start over. Figure out why. They were leaving us these clues. And the elite decide to keep it that's probably mostly what this whole big secret society is all about, is just hiding the fact that pretty much everybody's going to die and they think they're going to survive. But that's not how things go if you believe in what the Bible has said. So right here it says on the top, found in Wilburton, Oklahoma mines, 1912, stored at Creation Evidences Museum today in Glen Rose, Texas. This little pot, this little iron pot, it was found in a clump of coal, right? Like it was this people used to use coal to heat their homes, and this guy broke up a big chunk of coal and this little pot fell out. Now this coal was thousands and thousands of years old, and out comes this little handmade, man-made iron pot. What is it? It's an O part because they don't have an explanation for it. So, and then on the right, a hammer, 75 to 100 million year old Cretaceous rock by Max Han in June 1934 near London, Texas. So, 75 to 100 million-year-old rock. It is a hammer. And also interesting to note, when they found these O parts, right? When they test these metals, they test this iron and stuff, it's purer than any iron we can make. Like the metals that they find in these O parts, we can't even make our metals as strong and as pure as how they were once made before. Again, they were better than us. And they didn't make it. I mean, they some made it obviously because we're here, but they weren't able to save all of society. And I feel like they left these warnings because they had hope that maybe one day we could figure out a way to do that. And I just greed got in the way. And there's gonna have to be another runaround. This is a screw that was found in million-year-old rock, like millions and millions of year old rock. Again, giant skeletons. Look at the size of that man next to the skull. These things existed. Welcome to the post-truth world, guys. Please like, share, and subscribe as always. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I'm kind of all over the place sometimes. I apologize about that. Like it's just the way my brain operates. Um I hope you guys enjoyed this though. Like this was something that I think a lot about, especially with like us being advanced in the past. I think that we've done this so many times. Like it's happened over and over again. Like the flood, for instance, like that was a reset, right? And then there was the mud flood. Boom, another reset. I'd like to get into that with you guys. I have some longer videos that I would have to probably edit like pieces of, but about Tartaria, if you guys are interested in talking about Tartaria. I'm sure you guys already know a lot about it, but it doesn't hurt to talk about it again. It's good to know these things, and it's good to know that these things have happened and it can help us prepare ourselves. If you believe in God, God says he's going to protect his children. His children aren't going to be the ones that are running underground. I promise you that. There are prophecies that say there's going to be a period of time where it's 3 days of darkness. And when this 3 days of darkness comes, you're supposed to board up all your windows, not answer your doors. If someone knocks on your door and it sounds like your mom and they're like, please let me in, it's not your mother. Do not open the door. You don't look outside. It's kind of like the story of, you know, Lot and his wife, and when she turned into a pillar of salt because she wasn't supposed to look back. It's the same thing. 3 days of darkness, don't look outside. If you have barn animals, you put enough feed and water in there for 3 days and you cover up all the windows and stuff around them as well. Don't let any of your animals out. You don't go out. You don't open any doors. If it sounds like a relative's outside, it's not your relative. They will say things that only your relative would know, but it's not them. Don't open the door. That's just a prophecy that was told. Figured I'd share it with you guys. Like I said before, anything I say, it's my opinion, you know. I don't know. I just felt like I should share that with you guys. But I hope you guys found this interesting. Um we were definitely advanced in the past. Things are being hidden from us all the time. It's really sad, but if you keep your eyes open and you're paying attention, you'll you'll pick up on what reality is, or what it is for the most part anyway. As always, I love each and every one of you. I love you all individually, and stay aware, stay awake, and stay vigilant. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. I will be back next Sunday. I know I wasn't here last Sunday. I apologize about that. Sometimes things just happen and I don't make it to the stream. I just wish I could have told you guys ahead of time, but I will be here next Sunday. Um, so I will see you then. Not sure what we're going to talk about yet, but we'll get to it. Let me get me off screen here. Here's our outro. I hope you enjoy. I work hard on these intro and outros, so I hope you guys like these. God bless.